What's going on, guys? K-Pod here and welcome back. And in this video, I'll be featuring what might just be the Annihilape team to help you make a final push or achieve some goals as we head into the last week of the season. Annihilape on the lead, S-Drapion as a safe swap, and Wigglytuff in the back. I recorded these battles the day after Annihilape got Rage Fist, which was like 2 weeks ago by the time this video is being posted, and I've just been hanging on to them for when the Open GreatLeague came back around, so the team and how to play it is still fresh in your mind. I got an immediate 9-1 with this team, which I'll be showcasing here, and finished the day 24-6, so it has the results to back it up. And with that, let's get right into the battles. Alright, getting to the first matchup, we lead Annihilape into S-Drapion. What I like to do here is I'll tank a crunch and then fire off the close combat on the CMP tie to their Aqua Tail after that, just in case they try and call a Rage Fist. Now you'll see in this matchup, my opponent swaps into a Primeape, which we're going straight for the close combat. I feel like they have an incentive to call the Rage Fist, which they do. Close combat almost one-shots the Primeape as it goes down, and now we're going to see what my opponent wants to do. They come in with their own Annihilape. I'm going to pivot into my S-Drapion to reset that close combat defense drop and play the match out from there. But in that lead scenario, like I was saying, you go for the close combat just in case they try and call that Rage Fist. But if they end up shielding the close combat, then you'll let their Aqua Tail go, come in with your own S-Drapion, tank an Aqua Tail, and then fire off an Aqua Tail of your own right before they get to their next Aqua Tail. So this way you you'll have a shield advantage in that matchup, and your S-Drapion will also be loaded on energy to start spamming off moves against whatever they come in with, giving your Wigglytuff a good opportunity to close out the game there. But now back to this matchup. Wigglytuff has 2 shields. We use the first one on Aqua Tail, and then we'll swap into our Annihilape to force the rest of their energy. Down goes Annihilape, back in comes Wigglytuff, charms down the Drapion, and charms down their own Annihilape. GG's. Next battle. Annihilape into S-Drapion. So just like how I said last time, I'm going to play it out the same way. See if my opponent wants to stay in or if they swap out this time. We're going to take their first move. It is that crunch. Load up on energy, fire off the close combat on the CMP tie to that Aqua Tail. Close combat coming through. Opponent does shield it, so as you'll see here, I'm going to let this Aqua Tail go. Takes out my Annihilape, and I'm going to come in with my own Drapion, where I'm going to overfarm on energy, tank their tail, fire off my own, and now it's going to be Wiggly and a loaded Drapion versus their back line. Fire off the Aqua Tail before they would reach one. They make a very nice catch onto an Azu, so I will land that Aqua Tail, and then I'm going to throw one more in the crunch. This is to fish for that defense drop. If I don't get the defense drop, it's fine. I'll still pivot Wiggly, but there I'm fortunate enough to get the defense drop, and now these charms are chunking away at the Azu even more. And I do have to be mindful that their S-Drapion is only one more sting off an Aqua Tail, so that's something to keep in mind during that match. We're able to get the full charm down to the Azu, see what my opponent wants to do. If they come in with their Drapion, I'm going to have to throw a move right away to try and deny this energy, which is exactly what I do. I go for the Icy Wind just in case they shield, so I can drop their attack if I decide to let their move through, but in this case I don't. But the good news, that does drop their poison sting damage that they did. Now they come into a Malamar. I load up on energy onto my Wiggly and then swap into my Drapion to force them to go for a superpower there. And by forcing them to go for a superpower to take out my S-Drapion, that means this Icy Wind will definitely be enough to take out their Malamar as we then charm down their Drapion. GG's. Next battle. Annihilape into Drifblim. Terrible lead, but we do have 2 fantastic answers to this in the back. Come in Drapion, they come in Primeape, and it's gonna be a little tricky because they didn't quite give me enough of an energy lead to be able to reach 2 Aqua Tails before they reach a close combat. As you'll see here, they do reach one. I do give up a shield because surely they don't bait. It wouldn't really make too much sense for them to bait in that situation, but they do, and that is an atrocious shield because obviously it's the Rage Fist. And now my opponent is going to reach another move. I'm just going to let this go. I'm going to count my loss at this point or try to call another Rage Fist bait. But it's not. It's an Ice Punch. And now that makes more sense why they went for the bait there. Because if I called an Ice Punch, it wasn't going to KO. So they might as well go for the Rage Fist to boost up their attack. In the back, they have a Mandibuzz. And Wigglytuff's just going to be able to run rampant through my opponent's team since they built ABA weak to it. These Astonishes double resisted, doing absolutely nothing. And I'm not going to throw my move here because I know that I can charm this Drifblim down. Tank a Mystical Fire, shield the next Mystical Fire, and now we can just start spamming off these Icy Winds and applying this permanent debuff to the Mandibuzz. See there, iPhone problems, accidentally slide out of the app for a second. We missed some of the bubbles, but that's no problem as it does get the shield from my opponent. Icy Wind number 2 does land onto the Mandibuzz. Now we're going to hard swap into our Annihilape to reset the double attack drop that our Wiggly had. And with that, a double attack drop we applied to their Mandy, my opponent does concede. GG's. Next battle, Toxapex Lead. You may think this is a core breaker. It's not. Rage Fist Annihilape wins the 1s and 2s straight Rage Fist. It's pretty crazy. So that's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to go for that Rage Fist right away. We're going to let their first move go since we do know it's a Brian. Brian's neutral, Sludge Wave's resisted, but Sludge Wave does do more than a Brian. So if they only build up to a Brian, you're just going to let the first move go and then you'll shield their second move. Where if they build up to a Sludge Wave, you know, it's up to you whether you want to shield it or not for if they do go for that Sludge Wave or the Brian. They do go for a Brian. Right there, it doesn't KO, and we would be able to get the full counter down of the Toxapex, which is what we would go for. But they hard swap into their Guzzlord. We take advantage of those double boost counters, bring in our Wiggly to completely charm it down before they reach a potential Sludge Bomb. They come in with their own Wigglytuff. We're going to fire off this Icy Wind right away to apply that debuff, which does get their first shield. And now at this point, match just over. I can save the shield for my own Drapion as they go for a Swift. Not enough. Look for their pivot into the Pex for the snipe. Don't let it happen. And we can just Poison Sting down this Toxapex. They do land a Brine. Drapion shrugs it off. And now we have back-to-back moves to fire off against this Wiggly. Aqua Tail comes through. And at that point, my opponent realizes that the game is over as they let the move go through. And down goes their Wiggly. GG's. Next battle, Annihilape into S-Abomasnow. Fantastic lead for the ape here. See, my opponent does swap into a Shadow Kanto Marowak. I don't have a great answer for this, so I'm going to stay in here and just fire off this Rage Fist right away because it is good timing based off the 1 turn it takes for them to swap. And now I'm going to pivot into my Wiggly and get the charm down, which I will be able to do before they reach 2 Bone Clubs. So 1 Bone Club does land. Wiggly shrugs it off. They come back in the Abomasnow, and now we're going to start charming away and firing off these Swifts. I go for the Swift there just because I wanted to guarantee a move, just in case they are running Weather Ball over Icy Wind. They would have reached that Weather Ball before I would have reached my own Icy Wind. My opponent looking like they're going to go for the Powder Snow down, just can't quite get it, so they do go for the Weather Ball to take out my Wiggly. Come in Annihilape, shield their move. I'm going to build up to what I was trying to play to a CMP tie for their Hydro Cannon, but it's not, and I can just come in my Drapion here and go for an Aqua Tail. Honestly, I should have gone for the Crunch, but I recognized I just need damage, so Aqua Tail is fine here. As it will shield one of their Hydro Cannons, Aqua Tail does land, and from here we can just fast move everything down. Second Hydro does land. Their Gator won't quite be able to farm me down. Their only hope is that their Abomasnow can, which it can't. We leave with another Aqua Tail, and at that point, my opponent concedes. GG's. Next battle, Annihilape into Malamar. Not a good lead for us, so we are going to save swap into our Shadow Drapion here. Opponent's going to go for the superpower and dip, so I will give up my first shield, as a superpower will do a lot to a Shadow Drapion. Now they come in with an Azumarill, and we're just going to start spamming off these crunches. I build past a potential Sludge Bomb just in case my opponent might want to respect that. But almost every single Drapion's on a Crunch Aqua Tail, so my opponent knows better. They just let the moves go. Unfortunately, we do get a defense drop on our second Crunch. So now these Poison Stings are starting to ramp up and do a lot of damage to Zazu. They go for an Ice Beam. I let it go. I'm like, hey, if they go for a play off, so be it. But if they go for the Ice Beam, we are able to survive, make another Crunch, and get the Sting down. So now we have switch advantage and are able to put our Wigglytuff on the Malamar, which is huge. They will be able to land a superpower onto the Wigglytuff here, but I'm not worried. Wiggly shrugs that off. They have their own Shadow Drapion in the back. And from here, I'm just going to go straight Rage Fist. They have 2 shields. They have to start shielding something. So I should have gone Rage Fist right away. That's a little bit of a misplay because, again, they are going to be shielding this, knowing that I have a Wigglytuff in the back. And we just want to start ramping up our counter damage. So I will shield their Aqua Tail, and at this point, just commit to fast moves because that's what's going to win me the game. They do reach another Aqua Tail, but their Shadow Drapion is just so low that it's going to get charmed down before they reach another move, and so is their Malamar. As 3 charms does it, down goes Malamar, and down goes the Drapion. GG's. Next battle, Annihilape into Talonflame. Bad lead, and we are kind of core broken here, so we do need to stay in. So we're going to throw 7 counters and the Rage Fist for good timing. My opponent does let it go, and as you'll see, by staying in here with these boosted counters and everything, it's doing some pretty respectable damage to the Talonflame. I decided to let the Fly go just because they'll reach another Fly before I reach another Rage Fist, and I didn't want to have to give up my shield there to then lose my Annihilape. So I'd rather come in my Drapion to get up energy as the trade-off for me giving up that shield. They pivot into a Galarian Moltres. We bring in our Wigglytuff. Wigglytuff can survive a Brave Bird from the Galarian Moltres and charm down, so I didn't need to shield that. But what I was really hoping here was that if I did shield that Brave Bird, I would then be able to charm down the Talonflame in 3 charms, but I'm just not able to. So giving up that shield ends up being a pretty big misplay as they do reach a Parting Fly, have a Shadow Annihilape in the back, and unfortunately without any shields, this is going to be a game over. As Aqua Tail does get their final shield, but I get to the Crunch on the CMP tie to their close combat, so Crunch will not be able to get fired off as down goes our Shadow Drapion. GG's. Next battle, we lead Annihilape into Sableye, Shadow Sableye. Terrible lead, but again, we do have 2 good answers to this behind it. Pivot into Drapion, and we're going to fire off this Crunch right away. We want to fire off the Crunch right away before they fire off their own Foul Play or a Power Gem, just to reset that 1 turn it takes to swap and put us back in sync. They will fire off a Power Gem, which I do respect with a shield, and then they bring in a Shadow Jump Bluff. And this is fantastic because an Aerial Ace from a Shadow Jump Bluff isn't going to KO my Shadow Drapion at this range. They have to be running Acrobatics. But the good news with them being Shadow is Shadow Puff never run Acrobatics. They always run Energy Ball Aerial Ace. So we will be able to tank that move, go for the second Crunch on the CMP tie, which my opponent lets go. And now I have a little bit of health of Drapion that does reach an Aqua Tail in time. Might have been able to reach that Crunch, but realistically, with them having a Shadow Drifblim back, oh, don't reach that Crunch as I go down. But with it being a Shadow Blim in the back, Wigglytuff is in such a dominant position. It's very easily going to be able to close out that match. As my opponent recognizes that and they can see GG's. Next battle, we lead Annihilape into Clodsire. Again, you may think this is a core breaker. It is not. And this is actually one of the matchups for which I will advocate running a high attack Annihilape for. If you're running a high stat product Annihilape, meaning you have low attack, high defense, high HP, you will pretty handedly lose this matchup against the Clodsire. However, if you're running a high attack Annihilape, you get a counter breakpoint against the Clodsire that now enables you to win the one shield scenario against it. So we shield up the first move, which is most likely the Earthquake, tank the next Earthquake, and we can farm all the way down before they reach another move and leave with a close combat store to threaten whatever comes in. Unfortunately, we do get that energy snipe by a Drifblim, but as you've seen throughout this entire video, our backline absolutely shuts it down, so it's not a worry. And back on the topic of the high attack Annihilape, not only do you want it for this team because of that Clodsire matchup, but also if you face another Annihilape on the lead, winning CMP in that puts you in the driver's seat for the rest of the match. But one thing you do have to be careful of with a high attack Annihilape is you don't want to suffer on its defense too much, because you also need to maintain a bulk point against the Toxapex. You bend too much away from its defense, Toxapex will now reach a poison jab break point against your Annihilape that no longer allows you to win the one shield scenario against it. So you need to find that good middle ground that puts you in a good position to get that counter break point against the Clodsire, as well as that defense bulk point against the Toxapex. Now my Drapion's up against this Shadow Annihilape, which we do outpace the crunch. They recognize that and concede. GG's. Next battle, Annihilape Mirror. So the exact situation we were just talking about does come up here, where it's extremely advantageous to be running that high attack CMP Annihilape because of this. So we fire off that Rage Fist right away to get our counters boosted. They do give up a shield, so we'll give up a shield. If they don't give up a shield, we won't either, just because we don't want them to then shield our second Rage Fist, and then we'll be forced to shield their second Rage Fist. And now we go down 2 shields while they have only gone down 1. And again, not only is winning CMP advantageous here because it forces your opponent into that tough position as to whether they want to double shield or not, but it allows you to match your opponent's decisions. So you never really have to fall behind in that department at all. They have a Charjabug, and this Charjabug is not going to be able to get the farm down before I reach yet another Rage Fist, which my opponent ends up falling into the CMP Tide Trap as well. Oh my gosh, that Rage Fist did so much damage. My own Annihilape, just because I won CMP in the lead matchup, almost took out 2 entire Pokemon from my opponent. That's how important it is there. Now they have an Alolan Sandslash in the back. I pivot Drapion, and I just go for the crunch because I want to do as much damage as possible. Fortunately, we do get the defense drop, which nicely aids in the charm down of the A-Slash. And now if you ever come in with your Shadow Drapion against a Sandslash and you both have 0 shields, you always want to go for the crunch there, as it's extremely rare and IV dependent as to you surviving the Powder Snows plus the Drill Run to get off 2 Aqua Tails. So going for that crunch, guaranteed more damage, is just the safer play there. GG's to my opponent. So hopefully this video has been helpful if you're looking for a team to run during the last week of the season. And I'd get in on it while you can, since you never know what move changes are going to be made. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Love to hear what you have to say. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.